Alright, so I'm going to show you how to make an UnROM repro using a donor cart. This is good for a few games. Rodland and like Mega Man and Mushroom Kingdom come to mind. If you're doing original games, you can look it up. You can look that up yourself. I think original Mega Man actually is UnROM. So I've got it down to where I'm really not using a bunch of wires, just this one bridge wire right here on the front and this one on the back. You know, if you look up guides on how to do this, it gets pretty ugly. Well, obviously the first thing you want to do is to desolder the prog chip. The char is RAM on all of them, and I believe they are all 28 pin like this. And you're also going to cut off this capacitor on the end. It looks like a resistor, it's not, it's a capacitor. Tell by the symbol underneath of it. Because when you place your 32 pin chip on there, it's going to lay right on top of that component. So the first thing I do, of course, obviously I've already programmed my chips, but you want to do that. And these are 010, that just happens to be what I need to use for Rodland. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take pin 31 and 2 and bend them back and push them down so they make contact with pin 30. And I'll cut off a little bit of that extra leg like that. And you can crunch them up a little bit. And on pin 1, I'm just going to bend the lower the half the leg out, like so. And pin 2, I'm going to bend it all the way out, like so. And then you can cut that excess leg off as well. And then we can throw it into a board. Also, you're going to cut and lift pin 8 of the 7432 right there. And this one I've already pre-soldered that that bridge between pin 7 and 8. Basically that will pull it low, pull the hole low, I should say. And then pin 8 is actually going to be soldered to pin 2 of the eeprom. So you can set the eeprom. And solder it down. Make sure there's no bridges. If you've never seen anybody drag solder through hole chips like this, it's pretty easy if you have the right tip and iron. This is a JVC, which is really good for heat retention, and the beveled edge tip like that is awesome. It's a 939. It's C245939. Alright, now I go and I solder 31, 31, and 32 together. Just takes a little dollop. And then I'll take a dull knife, scrape away some solder mask on the 5-volt rail. You can see that. I'll push pin 1 over the top of it and solder it down. Pin 1 is VPP and it needs to be pulled high to read. And I'll pre-solder these two legs. And I have this tray full of component legs, usually cut off of a capacitor, sometimes a through-hole resistor. I just solder that down on each of those legs and cut off any excess like so. And of course make sure your vertical and horizontal is soldered correctly for your game. This is rod land, so it needs to be vertical. And then you're ready to test it to make sure it works. Okay, so this is a variation here. You can see I've used a eeprom. This is a 29F010, and pin 1 is not connected, and I have just completely cut it off there. Okay, so I forgot a step that I had already done off of camera. What you want to do is actually test your eeprom before you solder it down. This is an old Repro pack from Bunny Boy, or a retro USB that I've had forever, and I had it set up for UnROM just for this purpose, for testing the eeproms before I soldered them into my donor board like that. And I just play the game, honestly, just for a minute, just to make sure it starts up, and it usually seems to be okay. Alright, now we can actually test the actual finished PCB. I usually just play the first round of it. I wouldn't say that's the best way to test one, actually. I think actually trying to dump it, and I've never tried this, but maybe we could dump it with CopyNes and check the CRCs, make sure that they line up with each other. That would be a perfect check to make sure that it's actually been written perfectly well, and the whole game will be fine. So that's my easy way to wire the game anyway. If I ever dive into actually trying the CopyNes thing, I'll do another video.